Years ago, I used to have a friend. His name was Roger. This was back in Chicago in the 70s. This man was a successful man that had a business, had a new wife, kids. Everything was going good in his life. And as I'm telling this story, I just want to ask you if this story resonates with you a little bit. Everything was going good for a while, and you know how life is. Sometimes you get the good stretch in your life when everything goes good and things are happening, you're making money, you're happy, your kids are doing good, your relationship with your wife or your husband is excellent, and you just keep flying and you think that this is going to continue forever. But as you know, things change. Life changes. In the life of Roger, the big problem was underneath everything there was tension between him and his wife. One day, she packed up and left. He came home from work. He had a truck and he had a business installing kitchen cabinets. He came home, put everything into the garage, walked into the house, and the house was completely empty. His wife and his kids, they were gone. This was also at the same time when the economy was beginning to slow down. Within a year, his business was going bankrupt. Also, he was depressed on account of his wife and kids leaving. In a period of 3 years, he went from a home in suburbs to an apartment. And from an apartment, he ended up living in a trailer home on the edge of town, in a trailer that his mother owned. And within a few years, short years, this is a man who went from having everything, living good, living happy, to really having nothing, depending on food stamps to survive. He went from a house to a trailer. He went from car to walking. He went from a big salary to food stamps. Does this resonate with any of you? Have you been there? Have you experienced something similar in your life? We are living in a world in which it is easy to lose your power. It is easy to lose your energy. It is easy to lose your life the way it was. It is easy to lose your dreams. One day you are thinking that you have this wonderful future ahead of you, and the next day everything is crumbling and you are losing the things that you took for granted only a few months before. There are misconceptions that a lot of people have. We talked about misconceptions here on this program in the last several weeks. I want to talk to you a little bit about misconceptions that people have about their own power. If you have experienced something like this in your life, then you might say to yourself, I'm powerless, I'm weak, my life is useless, I have nothing to look forward to, I have lost all the things that I have worked for. Maybe you come to a point in your life when you say, I'm desperate. There is no way I will ever again be able to achieve anything worthwhile. I had another friend right here in Denver, and he worked all of his life and was getting ready to retire. And by the time he figured all of the numbers out, he realized that he was not going to be able to afford to live right here in Denver. And we had coffee one day, and he said to me, I'm getting to the point where I need to leave Denver because I can't afford to live here. And he went to live in Wyoming because the cost of living there was so much less. And he said to me before he left, he said, I'm too old to achieve anything anymore. This is it for me. And maybe you come to that point in life where you say, I can't achieve anything anymore. I'm too old. It's too late. I have had too many troubles and problems. Maybe you come to a point in your life where you recognize that feeling of being so deep in a hole that you don't even know which way is up anymore. Do you know the feeling of a world that's crumbling apart around you? Do you know that feeling of living with constant tension in your life? I know it. I have been there in my life. Today, as I stand before you, right now, this week, I know of a person who is losing their home. And they have been in this home for 25 years. But then things began to happen. The health went, and the disability came, and this person wasn't able to work anymore, and wasn't able to make payments anymore. And today, as I'm recording this, they are going to court to find out how long they have before they have to leave the house in which they grew up. If you have experienced something like that in your life, then you know the feeling that I'm talking about. The feeling of helplessness right here in your gut. The feeling that things are not going to get better. I know somebody who lost their job 2 years ago. 2 years ago. This man was a computer whiz. Worked for a company that used to do a lot of business in this town. They closed down and they laid everybody off. 2 years later, he still can't find a job. I know somebody right here in this church, a member of my congregation, whose husband was deported from this country a year ago. The kids, they were born right here in this country. They don't know any other country in this world. This is their country. The children, they are 12 and 13, and they speak fantastic English, and you couldn't tell that they came from somewhere else. And the father was deported because he didn't have all the paperwork correct. And this family hasn't seen him for over a year. And the question is whether they're going to see him who knows when. So you have a mother now who has to take care of the kids without a husband. Maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you have been there. I know somebody who has cancer. I know somebody who has cancer and she's 13 years old and has to live on oxygen and has to go take chemotherapy once a week for several years to come because of the type of cancer that this girl has, and has feeding tubes in her body. So we all know people who are suffering. We all know people who are down. And we have all been there. So you know the feeling that I'm talking about, the feeling that basically comes over you which says, my situation is so bad there is nothing that I can do about this. This is the feeling of depression and failure and giving up. I know somebody right now that I talked to in the last week whose addictions are destroying his marriage. His addictions, alcohol and drugs, are literally destroying his marriage. And as I talked to him, he says, Pastor Gordon, I'm so depressed that the only thing that helps me is to have a six-pack of beer. And he says, as soon as I have that beer, it takes the edge off, and I feel better. And you know what? Maybe he feels a little bit better when he has that drink, but it is destroying the rest of his life. I'm standing here before you tonight to tell you that the only thing that takes the edge off is Jesus. Coming to Jesus is the only thing that can take the edge off permanently. Coming to Jesus is the only thing that you can do to help yourself. Coming to Jesus is the only thing that you can do to regain your power. And that's what we are talking about tonight. Regaining your power. Coming back from failures in life. Coming back from depression. Coming back from negativity. The only thing that can help is coming to Jesus, face to face, and receiving His power into your life. There are 3 things that I want to mention. If you want to regain your power in your life, if you want to overcome the past failures and addictions and problems And if you want to have a new kind of life, there are 3 things that I would suggest to you tonight that the person should do. Number 1, let go of your fears. Give them to Jesus. One of the things that completely destroys our ability to have a healthy life is the fears that we carry inside of us. I am not good enough. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not sure that I have what it takes. I'm afraid to try this. I'm afraid that this is not going to be successful. This is the kind of language that many people say to themselves. They have fears and they have self-doubts. And as a result, they sit at home and they let go of their life. They lose control of their life. And things are just not going to get better as long as you have that attitude. So the first thing that the person needs to do is to let go of your fear. My father was sick for a while. I knew that. He was back in Croatia, and I was here in Denver, and we would talk on the phone every once in a while. But I knew that he was sick, and I was beginning to fear for him. And I was beginning to fear for what my life is going to be like without my father. And then one morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, a phone rang, and it woke me up from my sleep. And you know when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's generally not a good news. At 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody's calling you to tell you that you have won the state lottery. But somebody is calling you to tell you some bad news. And on the other end of that line was a doctor from a hospital back in Croatia. My father was admitted to the hospital. He had severe diabetes. They wanted to take off his legs because they were getting so bad with gangrene. And the doctor called me all the way from Croatia, and he said, "Mr. Anic, we just want to let you know that we have your father, and he's not doing good, and we don't expect him to live much longer." And I just, was awakened in shock. And I said, "How long do you think he has?" And the doctor says, "Well, maybe 3 days, maybe a week." And when you hear those kinds of words, when you get the message that your loved one has only a few days to live, it completely destroys any happiness and joy that you might have had in your life. And as joy and happiness leave your body and leave your mind and leave your being, the fear comes in. And you begin to fear the future. And my hand literally started shaking as I was talking to the doctor after he told me that my father only had days to live. You relate to that? Do you relate to the fear that can overcome you as you are thinking about your future? The fear that things are just not going to get any better? The fear that this woman is experiencing today in court? The fear that the judge is going to tell her that she has to leave her house immediately? Do you relate to that? Do you relate to the fear when you're looking at your teenage son or daughter and you know they're not doing good things in life? And you're staying awake until 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning waiting for them to come back to the house. And you're worried that you're going to get that phone call. I'll tell you what happened to me. After that phone call, I hung up the phone. And on my bedstand there was a Bible. And I instinctively put my hand on that Bible. And I prayed. And I said, "Lord, my father's life is in your hands. I would like to have one more time with him to see him. And I need your help for that to happen." And my hand stopped shaking. And peace came into my life. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, but I was calm. I was relaxed because I knew that God was in control. If you want to have a new beginning, if you want to have a new start, you need to go to God and give Him your fears. That's number one. Let go of whatever fear you have by going to God, giving it over to Him, and realizing, understanding that He is still in control regardless of what is going on in your life. Number two, I like to put it this way. Put it in neutral. And what do I mean by that? Put your hate in neutral. Put your obsessions in neutral. Put your political views in neutral. Put the things that annoy you in neutral. Put your past anger, put your bad habits, put your past failures in neutral. Do you realize what that means to put something in neutral? If you're driving a car, you're driving it in drive. Once you come to a stop, you can put it in neutral. What it means is that the engine is not going to be engaged with the gears, and your car is not going to go anywhere. You just put it in neutral. It means you stop it. Sometimes we deal with so many things in our life, and we become obsessed with so many things in our life, that they take away our energy and our peace and our ability to do the things that are important in our life. For example, a lot of people are obsessed with politics in this country. Whether they are a right wing or a left wing, and they watch all the TV shows about politics, and they watch, listen to all the radio people talking about it, and they talk to their friends about it, and it just becomes so obsessive that it just takes away your energy to do anything else in your life. It takes away your power to live life happy. And I want to tell you, put all of that in neutral. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you think about one politician or another. Your political views, whether you care for one party or another, it doesn't matter, because those people in Washington, they're going to do whatever they want to do anyways. Go out there, vote your conscience, but don't be obsessed with it. That's just one example of the things that people become obsessed with. Some people become obsessed with their past failures, and they can't get over the things that they have failed at sometimes in the past in their life. And they just keep bringing it up. And every time you do that, you lose the power to live your life now. If you want to regain your power, number one, let go of your fears and put all of the obsessions in neutral. In other words, stop worrying yourself with all of the things that you cannot do anything about. There is a story in the Bible about two men, Peter and Judah. Both of these guys betrayed Jesus. And both of them felt bad about what they have done. Imagine betraying somebody. Imagine betraying somebody's love. Imagine betraying a friend. You can see how they felt. They felt lousy, both of them. But Peter, the difference between the two is that Peter came back to Jesus. He came back to Jesus. He didn't want to dwell on his past. He came back and he wanted to be a friend of Jesus again. And the Bible tells us that Jesus accepted him back into the fold. Judas, on the other hand, he obsessed so much about what he had done that he went and he committed a suicide. He killed himself. If you obsess about your past failures, if you obsess about the things that you cannot do anything about, that obsession will take away your energy. It will take away your power. In order to regain your power, you got to let go. And number 3, get into your groove. What is it that you do good? What is it that you enjoy? Peter, he let go of the past. He came to Jesus. They had a heart-to-heart. And he let go of his past. And he went and he did what he enjoyed, which was preach the gospel. And he changed the world as a result of that. You have to find out what it is that you enjoy and go and do it. First step to regaining your power is to let go of all the stuff, burdens, and things that drag you down. These things include everything that you carry in your head that we have just talked about, the obsessions, the past failures. But they also include people. Sometimes there are people in your life who drag you down. Sometimes there are negative people in your life who just suck away all the energy from you. And anytime you have anything to do with them, you lose. You lose the energy to have a good quality life that day. Sometimes you have to let go of the people too in your life who are dragging you down and who are negative and who are constantly complaining. To regain your power, the Bible tells us that there is something that we need to do. We need to renew our mind. We need to approach life with a new mind, with a new attitude. In Romans chapter 12, it says, "Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship." And I'm going to come back and talk about this verse in one of the future sermons. But I want to continue here. "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect." Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It means let go of the past and adopt a new attitude. Go to Jesus. Give Him your fears. Give Him your concerns. Give Him your anxieties. Give Him your obsessions and addictions. And renew your mind. Ask Him to give you a new attitude. Ask Him to take away everything that is bad in your life and that drags you down, and to give you a new attitude. A new attitude that is based on the idea that God is in control and He loves you and He cares for you and He can take care of you. Verse 3, "For through the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think more highly of himself than he ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has allotted to each a measure of faith." God has given you the faith. Faith is the ability to go to God, to go to Jesus in prayer, and to trust Him that He will take care of you. Faith is the ability to know that the higher power is in control of your life. Faith is the ability to let go of the fear. Faith is the feeling that comes into your mind and body and heart when you know that God in heaven cares for you and sees you and knows your problems and is willing to help you out. That's what faith is, and the Bible tells us that God gave everybody a measure of faith. What is your gift? What will make you happy in this life? How do you figure out what your passion is? You know, a lot of people, they tell me, "Pastor Gordon, you know, I can let go of the bad things and I can go to God and ask Him to take away my fears and anxieties and concerns, and He does give me peace, but I still don't know what my passion is. I still don't know how to, what to do with my life in order to be happy." And I want to tell you, the reason some people don't know what their passion is because they never put themselves out there to test the things that might reveal to them what their passion is. If you have never worked with the kids as a volunteer with the kids in an orphanage, then you will never know if that's your passion. If you have never worked in a shelter for abandoned animals, then you will never know if that's your passion. If you have never designed anything on a computer, then you will never know if that is your passion. If you have never went to school to study, then you will never know if you have the passion for education. If you want to find out what your passion is, you got to go out there and test the waters. You got to go out there and put yourself out and try different things. A lot of people, they come home and they're so depressed, they sit in front of that television tube and they just never put themselves out, and as a result, they never know what their passion is. Everything starts with the attitude adjustment each morning. When I get up, I tell you what I do. I say, Lord, help me to realize that you are leading me. Help me to realize that you are in charge of my life. Lord, give me peace today. Give me the ability to lift people up today instead of put them down. If that is your prayer every morning, then God is going to be a part of your life. And He is going to help you have a positive life and help you regain your power in life. I prayed that prayer, I want to tell you, I prayed that prayer after that doctor called me and I said, Lord, I need a little bit of time to get together with my father. I want to see him one more time. And I tell you, I went back to Croatia in the next week. I got on a plane, I went over there, and I found my father dying in a hospital. You know what I did? Took him by the hand, put him on an airplane, brought him back to the United States, right here to Denver. Put him in an American hospital, and he lived for another 6 months. God answered my prayer. He allowed me to have time with my father. He allowed my father the time to say goodbye to the rest of his loved ones. God is in control. Your life is not out of control as long as you realize that God is in control. If you live in Denver, I want to invite you to come to the Arvada Seventh-day Adventist Church and visit our church. It's not the perfect church, but you will find out that people here will love you and care for you. I also want to offer to you today this wonderful book by Maurice Venden. He is a Seventh-day Adventist preacher, and the title of the book is To Know God. Some 25 years ago, when I went to the meetings conducted by Pastor Venden, it was him who helped me to understand the grace of God. If you call the number on the screen, we will give you this book for free. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and see you next Sunday night.